I've seen a couple people talk about how the music industry isn't working for them anymore, and I wanted to share my personal opinion on why nobody's making money in music, and I'll try to keep it under 90 seconds. So there's a lot of edge cases, but there's really basically three forms of income. There's recording income, there's publishing income, and there's touring income. I'll talk about touring first because I think a lot of people just assume that if an artist goes out on tour, they're all making money. That is just not true. This used to be true, but ever since the pandemic, that is not true for most people. What happened was with rampant inflation, costs have gotten extraordinarily high. And on top of that, everybody rushed back to the market at the same time. So there used to be kind of an ebb and flow, and now that is gone. Everybody is competing down to zero, essentially. Of course, there's ways around this. You can simplify your show. You can bring less people on tour, but that's why you don't see bands really making it. I've personally struggled with this because as much as I would love to do a live performance of some kind, the only thing that really makes sense for me financially is DJing, which is really just a function of selling alcohol in a club. That's the only reason that works for me. So we're in a situation where artists that are selling out 3,500 cap rooms across the country are breaking even or losing money. And that to me, that seems crazy. And of course, nobody wants to raise their prices because then, less people go or they can't afford to, which of course I understand. And what we're left is sort of an entire middle class of musicians that are just not able to sort of function at all. And you have a very small percentage of people at the top that are able to, play festivals and get the fees high enough to make that work. And now moving on to recording, which essentially consists of streaming. Streaming on a consumer level is amazing. I mean, being able to have access to all recorded music for $15 a month is incredible. However, you have to understand the history of Spotify specifically. Spotify exists as a reaction to piracy. That is why they exist in its current form. They've applied unit economics to something that is infinitely copyable, which actually makes no sense whatsoever. They essentially picked a fixed price, behind closed doors by the way, with the three majors to determine the value of all of the work that everybody creates. And this has consequences down the line. For example, if anybody would like to sell their catalog, those catalogs are based on a multiple of your yearly income of recording music. So it has an effect on the overall value of your life's work. And let's not forget that during those negotiations, Spotify gave the three major labels a lot of equity in their company pre-IPO, which they have no obligation to give to artists. Which leaves us with publishing, which is almost entirely based off of, syncing a song in a TV show or a movie, which can be pretty good. However, with that industry also falling apart, we're kind of left with nothing now. There's not enough t-shirts in the world to save this industry. There's not an obvious solution, but I think this would be a great step. I think $15 for all our recorded music is insane, unsustainable. I think user-centric model where the money that you pay every month goes to the actual artists that you listen to makes sense, right? And maybe on top of that, a artist subscription model, the Patreons of the world. I think that's the best option I can think of currently.